Hi class, so today we will discuss chapter 16, digestive system. So what are the functions of digestive system? So our digestive system function for ingestion, digestion, absorption, and elimination. So when we say ingestion, it is the consumption of solid or liquid food, usually through the mouth, while digestion is the breakdown of large organic molecules into smaller compounds that can be absorbed, while absorption is the movement of molecules out of the digestive tract and into the blood or lymphatic system. And lastly, elimination, it is the removal of undigested material such as fiber that are found in our food plus other waste products from the body as stool. So what is the anatomy and histology of digestive system? So our digestive system consists of digestive tract and other associated organs. That includes our oral cavity, the pharynx, the esophagus, the stomach, the small and large intestine, and the anus, and the specific associated organs such as the salivary gland, the liver, and our pancreas. So our oral cavity and esophagus are lined with stratified epithelium, which allows or protects them from abrasion of chewing and swallowing, while our stomach and our intestine are lined with columnar epithelium, which is specialized for absorption of nutrients and secretion of digestive fluids. So our digestive tract have four major layers. The first one is the mucosa or the innermost layer. It is consists of the layers, the inner mucous epithelium, the lamina propria, and the muscularis mucosa. The next layer is the submucosa, which lies just outside the mucosa. It is a thick layer of loose connective tissue that contains nerves, blood vessels, and small glands. Our third layer is the muscularis. It is consists of inner layer of circular smooth muscle and an outer layer of longitudinal smooth muscle. That's why the name itself is muscularis. Then lastly, we have the serosa or adventitia, which is the outermost layer. It is either a serosa or an adventitia. So when we say serosa, it is consists of peritoneum and its underlying connective tissue, while our adventitia is the one that covers the regions that are not covered by our peritoneum. So the figure shows the four layers of the digestive tract. Yan. So let's start with our peritoneum. So there are two types of peritoneum. We have the visceral and parietal. So when we say visceral, it is a serous membrane that covers the organ, while our parietal, it means it is the outermost layer, or it is the serous membrane that lines the wall of the abdominal cavity. Then we also have mesenteries. It is a connective tissue sheet that holds organ in place and also provide a route for blood vessels and nerves from the abdominal wall to the organ. So there are two types of omentum, the greater and the lesser omentum. When we say greater omentum, it is connecting the greater curvature of the stomach to the transverse colon and posterior body wall, while our lesser omentum connects the lesser curvature of stomach to the liver and the diaphragm. Then we also have retroperitoneal organs. These organs does not have mesenteries and lie along the abdominal wall. These include the duodenum, the pancreas, the ascending colon, the rectum, the kidneys, the adrenal glands, and our urinary bladder. Oral cavity or mouth. So it is the first part of our digestive tract. It is bounded by the lips and cheeks and contains the teeth in our tongue. So our lips is a muscular structure formed mostly by orbicularis oris muscle. Its outer surface are covered by skin, and it has a reddish pink appearance and due to underlying blood vessels in the thin transparent epithelium, while the internal margin of lips are moist, stratified squamous epithelium. While our cheeks forms the lateral walls of our oral cavity. It has a buccinator muscle which flatten the cheeks against the teeth and help form words during speech process. So both of these organ, the lips and cheeks, are very important in the process of mastication. They move the food around within the oral cavity and hold the food in place while the teeth crush or tear it. Then we also have the tongue. It is a large muscular organ that occupies most of our oral cavity. It has a frenulum, which is an anterior attachment to the floor of the mouth by a thin fold of tissue. And the anterior two-thirds of the tongue is devoid of papillae and has only a few scattered taste buds, while the posterior portion does contain large amount of this lymphatic tissue which helps from the lingual tissue. So the function of the tongue is to move food in the mouth and in cooperation with the lips and cheeks. It also plays a major role in swallowing. So our tongue is the major sensory organ for taste as well as one of the major organs for speech process. So our teeth. So the adult teeth has 32 teeth and is located in the mandible and maxilla. So the teeth can be divided into quadrants or four parts: the right upper, the left upper, right lower, and left lower. In adult, each quadrant contains one central and one lateral incisor, one canine, first and second premolars, first, second, and third molars, while the third molar is also known as the wisdom teeth, which appears usually in the late teens or early 20s. The teeth of the adults are called permanent teeth or secondary teeth. And the 20 primary teeth or deciduous or baby teeth are lost during childhood. So each tooth consists of three regions: the crown, the neck, and the root. So when we say the crown, it is the visible portion of the tooth, while the neck is a small region of the tooth between the crown and root, and the root is the largest region of the tooth and anchors it in the jawbone. While the pulp cavity is found within the center of the tooth and is filled with blood vessels, nerves, and connective tissue pulp. While the dentine is a living cellular calcified tissue surrounding the pulp cavity. So there are two types of dentine. We have the enamel and cementum. So when we say enamel, it is an extremely hard acellular substance covering the dentine of the tooth crown. So it is the one that protects the tooth against abrasion and acids produced by bacteria in the mouth. While our cementum covers the surface of the dentine, the root helps anchor the tooth in the jaw. So the teeth are held in place with alveoli along the alveolar processes of the mandible and the maxilla. And we have the gingiva, which is the alveolar process that are covered by dense fibrous connective tissue and moist stratified squamous epithelium. Then we also have the periodontal ligaments that secure the teeth in the alveoli by embedding them into the cement. So the formation of dental caries or tooth decay is the result of breakdown of the enamels by acid produced by bacteria on the tooth surface. So enamel is non-living and cannot repair itself. Kaya nagkakaroon ng yellowish um, decay that can be found in the teeth. So it's very important na mag-visit ng dentist every now and then. So dental filling is necessary to prevent further damage. So we also have periodontal disease. It is an inflammation and degeneration of the periodontal ligaments, gingiva, and alveolar bone. It is the most common cause of tooth loss in adults. So what happens is that the infection may cause enlargement of the superior cervical lymph nodes. Ito yung namamaga, yung gums. Yan, kaya sobrang sakit niya and usually tinatanggal yung ngipin kasi namamaga na. Then we also have the palate and the tonsil. So the palate or roof separates the oral cavity from the nasal cavity and prevent food from passing into the nasal cavity during chewing and swallowing. It consists of two parts, the hard palate, which is the anterior part contains bone, and the soft palate, which is the posterior portion that consists of skeletal muscle and connective tissue. Then we also have the uvula, this one. Ito yung usually na nakikita natin kapag binuka yung ang ating bibig. Yan, the posterior extension of the soft palate. Then we have our tonsils. It is located in the posterior walls of the oral cavity, in the nasopharynx, and in the posterior surface of our tongue. Then we have our salivary glands. So, alam nyo naman, when we say salivary glands, so they are the one responsible for making our saliva. So, the salivary glands are composed of alveolar glands. They have branching ducts with cluster of alveoli resembling grapes at the ends of the duct. So there are three major pairs of salivary glands. We have the parotid glands, which is the largest, and it's located at just anterior to each ear. Then we have the submandibular glands that produces more serous than mucus secretion and can be felt as soft lump along the anterior, the inferior border of the mandible, and the sublingual, which is the smallest and primarily produces mucus secretion. So, saliva is a versatile fluid that helps keep the oral cavity moist and contains enzymes that begins the process of digestion. So, saliva is secreted at the rate of approximately 1 liter per day. The serous part of the saliva produced mainly by the parotid and the submandibular glands that contains digestive enzyme. So an example of digestive enzyme is the salivary amylase. So it breaks down starch, breaks the covalent bond between the glucose molecules in starch and other polysaccharides, produces disaccharides, maltose, isomaltose, and have a sweet taste. So what are the functions of our saliva? So they prevent bacterial infections by washing the oral cavity with a mildly active antibacterial enzyme called lysozyme. It also neutralizes the pH in the mouth. And lack of salivary gland secretion increases the chance of ulceration and infection of the oral mucosa and caries formation in the teeth. So our saliva contains mucin, which is a proteoglycan that gives a lubricating quality to the secretions of our salivary glands. And our salivary gland is regulated primarily by the autonomic nervous system, with parasympathetic stimulation being the most important. So secretions increase in response to a variety of stimuli, such as tactile stimulation in the oral cavity and certain taste, especially sour taste. So higher brain centers can stimulate parasympathetic activity and thus increase the activity of the salivary gland in response to the thought of food, to odors, or to sensation or hunger. So sympathetic stimulation increases the mucus content of the saliva. Then we have the mastication. So when we say mastication, the food taken in the mouth is chewed or masticated by our teeth. So the incisors and the canines are the ones that primarily cut and tear the food, whereas our premolars and molars are the ones that crush and grind the food. So mastication breaks the large food particles into smaller ones, which have much larger total surface area than a few large particles would have. Then our next organ after the oral cavity is our pharynx. So the pharynx or throat connects the mouth with the esophagus. And our pharynx has three parts: the nasopharynx, the oropharynx, and the laryngopharynx. So the posterior walls of the oropharynx and laryngopharynx are formed by superior, middle, and inferior pharyngeal constrictor muscles. Then we have our esophagus. It is a muscular tube lined with moist, stratified squamous epithelium. It extends from the pharynx to the stomach. So our esophagus is about 25 centimeter long and lies anterior to the vertebra and posterior to the trachea within the mediastinum. So our esophagus is the one that transports the food from the pharynx to the stomach. And it has an upper and lower esophageal sphincters that are located at the upper and lower ends of the esophagus, and they are the one that regulates the movement of food into and out of the esophagus. So we have swallowing or deglutition that can be divided into three phases. So we have the voluntary phase, the pharyngeal phase, and the esophageal phase. So when we say the voluntary phase, the mass of food is formed in the mouth, and the tongue will be the one that push the bolus against the hard palate. This force the bolus toward the posterior part of the mouth and goes into the oropharynx. So when the bolus or mass of food reaches the oropharynx, there will be the pharyngeal phase or the swallowing controlled by a reflex. So what happens is that the bolus of food stimulates receptors in the oropharynx to elevate the soft palate and closing of the nasopharynx. So during this time, magkuklose yung ating nasopharynx para hindi po bumalik yung pagkain sa ilong. So mangyayari, dumidiretso siya pababa. So as food passes through the pharynx, the vestibular and vocal folds close, and the epiglottis is dipped posteriorly so that the opening into the larynx is covered. And lastly, we have the esophageal phase, which is the moving of food from the pharynx to the stomach. So during this phase, there will be muscular contractions of the esophagus that occur in peristaltic wave. So there is a wave of relaxation in the esophageal muscle that precedes the bolus of food down to the esophagus, and a wave of strong contraction of circular muscle follows and propels the bolus through the esophagus. Then the next organ is the stomach. It is primarily houses the food for mixing with HCl or hydrochloric acid and other secretions. It is an enlarged segment of the digestive tract in the left superior part of our abdomen. So in the stomach, we have a gastroesophageal opening, which is the opening from the esophagus into the stomach. And while our most superior part of the stomach is called the fundus, and the largest part of the stomach is called the body. So the body turns the right, forming a great curvature and a lesser curvature. And in the body of the stomach, we have the pyloric opening and pyloric region. So in the pyloric opening, it is an opening in the small intestine surrounded by a relatively thick ring of smooth muscle, also known as the pyloric sphincter. While our pyloric region is the region of the stomach near the pyloric opening. So these two are very important in the movement of the food uh, out, out the stomach. So the stomach has three muscular layers: the outer longitudinal layer, the middle circular layer, and our inner oblique layer. So in our stomach, it produces a churning action that is very important in digestive process. Then we have the rugae. So the rugae are the mucosa and submucosa of the stomach that are that looks as large folds. They allow the mucosa to stretch and the folds disappear as the stomach is filled. Uh, The stomach is also lined with simple columnar epithelium, while the mucosal surface form numerous tube-like gastric pits, which are the openings for gastric glands. Then the stomach has different types of epithelial cells that can be divided into 5 groups. So we have the surface mucous cells, or on the inner surface of the stomach, and lines the gastric pits and produces the mucus. So the main function of the surface mucous cells is to coat and protect the stomach lining, while our mucous neck cells produces mucus, and endocrine cells is the one that produces regulatory chemicals. The parietal cells are the one that produces the hydrochloric acid and the intrinsic factors found in the stomach, and the chief cells are the one that produces the pepsinogen, which is a protein digesting enzyme precursor of enzyme pepsin. Then we have the secretions of the stomach. So the chyme, or the food that is mixed with stomach secretion to become a semi-fluid mixture. And there will be 4 secretions that are secreted by the gastric glands. We have the hydrochloric acid that produces a pH of about 2.0 in the stomach. So the acid kills the microorganism and activates the pepsin. Then pepsin is converted from the pepsinogen, which is the inactive form. It breaks covalent bonds of proteins to form smaller peptide chains. So exhibits of optimum enzymatic activity at a pH of 2. Then we have the mucus that forms a thick layer that lubricates the epithelial cells of the stomach wall and protects them from damaging effect of the acidic chyme and peptin. And irritation of the stomach mucosa stimulates the secretion of the greater volume of mucus. So kung napapansin nyo, pag sumusuka kayo, maasim yung sinusuka nyo, it's because of the acid that are found in the stomach. And usually parang malagkit, alaway, it's because merong mucus that are found in our stomach. Then lastly, we have the intrinsic factors. So these are very important because this binds with vitamin B12 and makes it more readily absorbed in the small intestine. So vitamin B12, it is very important in the DNA synthesis and in our DNA, in our RBC production. So during heartburn or gastritis, there is a painful or burning sensation in the chest, usually associated with increased gastric acid secretion or during a backflush of acidic chyme into the esophagus. So, di ba, kaya parang pag may heartburn, ang sakit ng dibdib mo, tapos parang gusto mong isuka, feeling mo may nakabara sa may lalamunan mo. Tapos, maasim yung hininga. Ayan, tapos sobrang sakit ng tiyan mo. Medyo mataas, upper quadrant. Yan, kasi may acid reflux. So, regulation of stomach secretion. So, approximately 2 liters of gastric secretion are produced each day, and both nervous and hormonal mechanisms regulate gastric secretion. So, hormones produced by the stomach and intestine help regulate stomach secretion. And regulation can be divided into 3 phases. We have the cephalic phase, gastric phase, and our intestinal phase. So what are the functions of the major digestive system hormones? We have the gastrin, which increases gastric secretion and which is secreted by the gastric glands. We also have the secretin that decreases gastric secretion, increases pancreatic and bile secretion. It also decreases gastric motility. And lastly, we have the cholecystokinin, which are produced by the duodenum and decreases gastric secretion, strongly decreases gastric motility, increases gallbladder contraction, and increases pancreatic enzyme secretion. So there are two types of stomach and digestion and help move chyme through the digestive tract. So, tulad na nabanggit ko kanina, we have two waves, the mixing waves and the peristaltic wave. So when we say mixing wave, thoroughly mix ingested foods within the stomach to form the chyme or the liquid form, and the peristaltic waves that force the chyme toward into the pyloric sphincter and occurs when the stomach is empty. Then we have hunger pangs or stomach growling. It occurs for about 2 to 3 minutes and can build in strength to a prolonged or tetanic contraction. So it begins 12 to 24 hours after the previous meal and less time for some people. Then we have vomiting. It's a protective mechanism of our body against the ingestion of toxic or harmful substances. So vomiting and nausea can result from irritation anywhere along the digestive tract. Then we have the smaller intestine, about 6 meters long and consists of three parts. We have the duodenum, the jejunum, and our ileum. So our duodenum is the longest, which is about 25 centimeter long. Ah, I mean shortest, about 25 centimeter long and nearly completes a 180-degree arc as it curves within the abdominal cavity. Then we have the jejunum about 2.5 meter long and makes up 2 fifths of the total length of the small intestine. And the longest one is our ileum, which makes up 3 fifths of the small intestine. It's about 3.5 meter long. So our small intestine is the major site of digestion and absorption of food. Then our small intestine has three modifications that increases its surface area about 600-fold. So we have the circular folds, the villi, which are tiny finger-like projections of the mucosa, and we also have the microvilli, which are cytoplasmic extension. Then we also have four major cell types that are found in the mucosa of the small intestine. We have the absorptive cells, which have microvilli and produces digestive enzymes and absorb digestive foods. We also have the goblet cells that produces mucus. We have the granular cells that protects the epithelium from bacteria. And lastly, we have the endocrine cells that are important in producing regulatory hormones found in our intestine. So what are the secretions of the small intestine? So secretions of the mucosa of the small intestine contains mostly of mucus, ion, and water. So what are the functions of the secretions of the small intestine? So it lubricates and protects the intestinal wall and keeps the chyme in the small intestine in a liquid form to facilitate the digestive process. So there are two secretions. We have the peptidase and the saccharidases. So they are enzymes. So the peptidases are enzymes that digest proteins, while the saccharidases are enzymes that digest small sugars, such as disaccharides, and breaks down the maltose and glucose and many more. Then the mucus that is produced by the duodenal glands and by goblet cells um, is important in the epithelial lining of the entire small intestine and within the intestinal gland. So movement in the small intestine. So kanina, sa large intestine, we have two waves, the mixing wave and peristaltic wave. In our small intestine, we have the peristaltic contraction and the segmental contraction. So when we say peristaltic, so proceed along the length of the intestine for variable distance and cause the chyme to move along the small intestine. While segmental contractions propagated for only short distances and mix intestinal contents. So most absorption of the nutrient occurs in the duodenum and jejunum, although some absorption also occurs in our ileum. Our next organ is our liver. It is also considered as our largest internal organ of the body and weighs about 1.36 kilogram. It is located in the right upper quadrant of our abdomen, tucked against the interior surface of the diaphragm, and the posterior surface of the liver is in contact with the right rib. So our liver processes the nutrients and detoxifies harmful substances from the blood and also produces the bile that are which is a very important digestive fluid. So our liver consists of two major lobes, the right and left lobe, and are separated by a connective tissue septum and a falciform ligament. The two smaller lobes of the liver is the caudate and the quadrate lobe. And it receives blood from two sources, the hepatic artery, which delivers oxygenated blood to the liver, and the hepatic portal vein that carries nutrient-rich blood from the digestive tract to the liver. So the central vein is the one that empties into the hepatic veins and exits to the liver. So there are many delicate connective tissue septa that divides the liver into lobules with portal triads at their corners. So the portal triads contain the three structures: the hepatic artery, the hepatic portal vein, and the hepatic duct. So what are the functions of liver? So the functions of the liver are for digestion, excretion, nutrient storage, nutrient conversion, detoxification of harmful chemicals, and synthesis of new molecules. So yung glutathione, so it's for detox of the liver. So hindi talaga siya nakakaputi, but what it does is it's a side effect of detoxing the liver, kaya siya nakakaputi. Pero hindi talaga niya main function is para mapaputi ng skin. It's a side effect lang of taking glutathione. The liver synthesizes also the blood proteins such as the albumin, fibrinogen, globulins, and clotting factors, which are very important in our coagulation. Yan. Especially if there is bleeding or trauma. So without the liver, there will be no fibrinogen. There will be no clotting factors to stop the bleeding. Then the next organ is the pancreas. It is located retroperitoneal, posterior to the stomach in the inferior part of the left upper quadrant. It has a head near the midline of the body and a tail that extends to the left where it touches the spleen. So the pancreas has both endocrine and exocrine tissues that perform several functions. So the endocrine part of the pancreas consists of pancreatic islets or islet of Langerhans. So this produces the insulin and glucagon. And we also have the exocrine that is composed of acinar gland. So the acini is the one that produces the digestive enzymes and are connected by small ducts which join to form larger ducts and larger ducts to join form the pancreatic duct. So our insulin and glucagon is very important because they control the blood levels of nutrients such as the glucose and amino acids. So napapansin nyo yung ating mga diabetic, they inject insulin kasi during diabetic, pag meron kang diabetes, merong problem sa insulin production. So without insulin, hindi mag-break down yung sugar. So, dadami lang siya and mag-accumulate lang siya sa body. So, without the action of insulin, hindi maka-counteract yung secretion and reabsorption of nutrients. So what are the functions of our pancreas? So the exocrine secretions of the pancreas includes bicarbonate ions and pancreatic enzymes. So the bicarbonate ions are the one that neutralizes the acidic chyme that enters the small intestine from the stomach. And the pancreatic enzymes are important in digesting all major classes of food. So the major protein digesting enzymes are the trypsin, chymotrypsin, and the carboxypeptidase. Other enzymes also include the pancreatic amylase, the lipase, and our nuclease. Then we have our large intestine. The large intestine consists of 4 parts: the cecum, colon, rectum, and anal canal. So when we say cecum, proximal end of the large intestine where it joins with the small intestine at the ileocecal junction and located in the right lower quadrant of the abdomen. Then it is attached to the cecum. Attached to the cecum is the appendix that is 9 centimeter long. So we have this kind of disease, which is the appendicitis, wherein the appendix are inflamed or namamaga. That usually occurs because of an obstruction. So symptoms of appendicitis includes a sudden abdominal pain at the McBurney point. It can also cause light fever, loss of appetite, constipation or diarrhea, nausea, and vomiting. So if the appendix bursts, it can cause peritonitis, so inflammation of the peritoneum, and can be life-threatening. So it's very important na kapag may appendicitis, the patient must be operated immediately to prevent the bursting of the appendix. The next is we have the colon, which is about 1.5 to 1.8 meter long and consists of 4 parts. We have the ascending, the transverse, the descending, and the sigmoid colon. The crypts are the mucosal lining of the colon that contains numerous straight tubular glands, which contains many mucus-producing goblet cells. Then we have our rectum, which is a straight muscular tube that begins at the termination of the sigmoid colon and ends at the anal canal. So it is composed of smooth muscle and relatively thick in the rectum compared to the rest of the digestive tract. Then lastly, we have the anal canal, which is the last 2 to 3 centimeter of the digestive tract, and it begins at the inferior end of the rectum and ends at the rectum and ends of the rectum and ends at the anus. So we have the hemorrhoids or the enlarged or inflamed rectal or hemorrhoidal. The veins that supply the anal canal. So yung veins po in the rectum are enlarged or namamaga. So this may cause pain, itching, and or bleeding around the anus. So treatments includes increasing bulk in the diet, taking sitz bath, and using hydrocortisone suppositories. So what are the functions of large intestine? So 18 to 24 hours are required for material to pass through the large intestine, in contrast to the 305 hours required for chyme to move to the smaller intestine. So the feces formation is due to the absorption of the water and salts, the secretion of mucus, and extensive action of the microorganism. So the defecation is the process or of elimination of the feces or stool. And the mass movements are large parts of the colon that undergo several strong contractions that occurs every 8 to 12 hours, which propel the colon contents a considerable distance toward the anus. So we also have the defecation reflex that occurs when feces extend the rectal wall and consists of two types: the local reflex, which causes weak contractions of the distal colon and rectum, and the parasympathetic reflex that causes strong contractions and are normally responsible for most of the defecation reflex. So, digestion, absorption, and transport. When we say digestion, it is the breakdown of food to molecules that are small enough to be absorbed in the blood. So there are two types of digestion. We have the mechanical digestion, which breaks large food particles into smaller ones, and chemical digestions, which involves enzymes to break covalent chemical bonds into organic molecules. Then we also have absorption that begins in the stomach, where some small lipid-soluble molecules such as alcohol and aspirin can diffuse through the stomach epithelium into the blood. And most absorption occurs in the duodenum and jejunum. Then lastly, we have the transport, which requires carrier molecules and includes facilitated diffusion, cold transport, and active transport. So the cold transport and active transport requires energy to move the transported molecules across the intestinal wall. So we have the carbohydrates, which is the major food source and key form of energy. And it is composed of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms. So there are two basic compounds that makes up our carbohydrates. We have the aldehydes and the ketones. So when we say aldehyde, they are double bonded carbon and oxygen atom with a hydrogen atom attached with it, while the ketones are a double bonded carbon and oxygen atoms plus two additional carbon atoms. So there are various types of carbohydrates. We have the monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides. So when we say mono, it is the smallest possible sugar unit, mono 1. So this includes our glucose, galactose, and fructose. So the glucose is the major source of energy and also known as the blood sugar. Then we also have the galactose that are readily available in milk and dairy products, and the fructose that are usually found in our vegetable and fruits. Then we also have disaccharide, which means two monosaccharides, di, which means two. This includes the lactose, maltose, and the sucrose. So our lactose is the bonding of one glucose molecule with a galactose and are commonly found in milk. Then we have the sucrose, which is the bonding of one glucose molecule with the fructose, and also known as our table sugar. Then lastly, we have the maltose, which is the formation of two glucose and are found in starchy grains, vegetable, and fruits. Then our third type of carbohydrates is the polysaccharides, which means different sugars and acts as a food stores in plants and animals. So the chain may be branch or unbranched, and the polysaccharide molecule chains may consist of hundreds or thousands of monosaccharides. So examples are glycogen, which is a polysaccharide that humans and animals store in the liver and muscle. Then we have the starches, which are glucose polymers that made up of amylose and amylopectin. So examples are potatoes, rice, and wheat. And lastly, we have the cellulose that are the main structural constituents of the plants. And examples includes wood, paper, and cotton. Then we also have the lipids. So they are molecules that are insoluble insoluble or only slightly soluble in water. So this includes the triglycerides, the phospholipids, the steroid, and the fat-soluble vitamins. So when we say triglycerides or fats, they are the most common type of lipids, and they consist three fatty acids bound to glycerol. So there are two types of TG. We have the saturated and unsaturated. So when we say saturated, they are fatty acids that have only single bond between carbons. So they are mostly found in meat, dairy products, eggs, nuts, and coconut and palm oil, while our unsaturated fats have double bonds between carbons. So they are usually found in fish and most plant-based oil. And there are two types of unsaturated fats, the monounsaturated, which means contains one double bond, and polyunsaturated, which means have more than one double bond. And we have our phospholipids, which is made up of two fatty acids, a phosphate group, and a glycerol molecule. Our phospholipids provide barriers and cellular membranes that protect the cells and make barriers for the organelles within those cells. It also acts as emulsifiers, enabling oils to form a colloid with water, and it is one of the components of lecithin, which is found in egg yolks, as well from the soybeans, and can be used as a food additive in many products and can be purchased as a dietary supplement. The third type of lipid is the steroids. So they are a type of lipid that contains four rings of carbon atoms and can act as a hormone in the body. So there are three types of steroids. We have the anabolic androgenic steroids. We also have the glucocorticosteroids, and we have the mineralocorticosteroids. So for our anabolic androgenic steroids, we have the testosterone. For glucocorticosteroids, we have the cortisone and prednisone, which is very important because for its function for anti-inflammatory or immunosuppressant, usually if the patient have swelling, rashes, asthma, or bronchitis. And lastly, the mineralocorticosteroids, such as the vasopressin that produced by the adrenal glands that regulates salt and water. Then lastly, we have the fat-soluble vitamins that are similar to oil and do not dissolve in water. They are stored in the liver, adipose tissue, and skeletal muscle. So there are four fat-soluble vitamins in the human diet: the ADEK, the vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin K. So there are three possible feeds for lipids in the liver. So the lipids can be stored and it can be converted into other molecule, or it can be used as energy. So if a person is on diet or in fasting, so wala ng carbohydrate intake. So what happens next is the fatty acids will be used as an energy source of the body. So there are five types of lipoproteins. We have the chylomicrons, which is the largest and least dense of the lipoproteins. It has the highest triglyceride content. We also have the VLDL, which is the bad cholesterol, and it is composed of proteins, fats, and cholesterol synthesized in the liver. We also have the IDL, which is created by the metabolism of VLDL. The LDL, which also contains chiefly of cholesterol, which is also a bad cholesterol, the only apoprotein associated with its ApoB100, and forms scary fat and cholesterol produced in the liver to the tissue. And we have the HDL, or the good cholesterol, because it has the highest protein and it has apoprotein A1. and carries cholesterol away from the tissues to the liver and lowers blood cholesterol level. So high HDL level are associated with lowered risk of cardiovascular disease. So we also have proteins or chains of amino acids found in most of the plant and animal products we eat. So there are different enzymes. We have the peptine, which is a protein digesting enzyme, and the trypsin, chymotrypsin, and carboxypeptidase that are synthesized by the pancreas in inactive state. And in the small intestine, they are activated and continues the protein digestion. Then we also have the peptidase that breaks down small peptide into tripeptides, dipeptides, or single amino acids. And these amino acids are actively transported into cells under the influence of growth hormone and insulin. And these amino acids are used to build new proteins or to serve as a source of energy. Then we also have water and minerals. So approximately 9 liters of water enter the digestive tract each day. And approximately 92% of water is absorbed in the small intestine, about 7% is absorbed in the large intestine, and about 1% leaves the body in feces. So what are our major ions? We have the sodium, potassium, calcium, and magnesium, and the phosphate ions that are transported from the small intestine. While our vitamin D is required for the transport of calcium, while our negatively charged chloride moves passively through the wall of the duodenum and jejunum with the positively charged sodium, while our chloride is actively transported into the ileum. So what are the effects of aging on the digestive system? So with advancing age, the layers of the digestive tracts become thin and the blood supply decreases. And all the mucus secretion and motility also decreases, and the defenses declines, leaving the digestive system to be more sensitive to infection and toxic agents. While in our teeth, the tooth enamel becomes thinner and the gingiva recede. So when this happens, the dentine is exposed and that makes um, eating habits painful. So that's the end of our lecture. Thank you so much for listening and I hope you learned something today. Thank you.